All right, folks, welcome back. This is a Bleacher Report live stream. You've seen me before. You've also seen Alexis before. And in case you're living under a rock, we do a show called the Downtown Rams podcast. And Bleacher Report has been so nice to bring us together to talk about the Rams and talk about sleepers, which is a avenue you and I have always kind of we've kind of towed the line of the whole sleeper realm. We talk about the lesser known prospects. We bring prospects on our show. And so I thought this was very fitting to have our debut together show. It would be about sleepers in the draft.
I agree. It's always been kind of our thing that we like to find sleepers in the draft and really ride for them and pound the table for them. And we've been doing that for 5 years. A lot of those sleepers we've interviewed on our show who have gone on to have successful careers in the NFL, and guys that you and I were not surprised to see excel at all. So yes, very fitting topic for us to come together and talk about today. And yeah, I'm excited to get into it and see what people think about our picks.
Absolutely. So we want to let you guys know before you get going, if at any point you like what you're hearing and you haven't already, be sure to follow us on this app. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow Alexis. Alexis is her name on here. So you can also follow her after this on all social media at the Alexis Kraft. You can follow me at JK Bogan. Diving into this, Alexis and I we made lists and we combined our sleepers for each position. So we're going to go through positions. I actually want to start from a different spot. Normally everyone goes in the order of quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, offensive, all that. We're going to start from the defense because I feel like a lot of people need to have their defensive juices quenched. Everybody is like, what's going on with the Rams defense? They don't care. They do care. They spent a lot of money this offseason on it. So let's start from the top here. A guy that we interviewed, Malik Mustafa, out of Wake Forest. I mean, I'll let you, take the lead on this and I'll piggyback off you, but we both really came away impressed just talking with him.
Yeah. I mean, for starters, just as a person, great person. We had a really lovely time speaking with him. Very nice guy, down to earth. Great interview that's still up if anybody's interested in watching it. But him as a player, the first thing that I noticed, Jake, what comes to mind when I'm thinking of Malik is just what a hard hitter he is. He, in that backfield, he's a very aggressive tackler, which as a safety, I think it's so fun to watch because as weird as it is to say, you don't always see that at the safety position, just a very violent old school safety. And that's what's going to stand out to you if you go watch his tape first thing, most likely. Average safety size, 5'10", 209 pounds. But plays a lot bigger just because of how violent he is. I think something that's a little underrated about him, because I think it gets taken away from with his violent plays, that he's actually very good at route recognition and he's great ball skills. So not only is he this hard-hitting safety, he's also good to make a play in the ball. He's very agile, very athletic. So he's able to track that ball downfield as well and not just make the hard-hitting plays. He can do both. So, Jake, I'll let you elaborate on that. But that's the first thing that comes to my mind when I think of Malik Mustafa.
Yeah, watching his film, he's fun. I think really to talk about why he's even a sleeper, why we don't know where he's going to go, why he could go later on, day 3 even. It's worth noting he did tear his ACL in 2021. He doesn't have the ball production. You mentioned the ball skills. He doesn't have the ball production that teams want to see. But he actually has a well-built frame. You mentioned he has average size, which I agree. The height is definitely average for the most part. But I think just the way he is built allows him to be as explosive as you're talking about. He's got a lot of pop behind his pads. This is somebody that can really be a game changer in the run game, in run support, kind of similar to the guy that the Rams got, a safety who they just signed this year. Kind of surprising, but they got Cameron Curl. Cameron Curl was kind of that guy coming out of Arkansas, has kind of that hybrid safety linebacker body. I think when you're looking at a guy like Malik Mustafa, he looks like that, but he's shorter. So it's more of like a mini linebacker, if you will. Kind of reminds me a little bit of Denzel Perryman, in a sense, but just in a safety's body. And I just think he's very disciplined, and I like his special teams experience, Alexis. So the great range that he has, I think he's going to have better ball production at the NFL level. So I like this one. And I think I picked this out, but you and I would both agree that this would be a big time sleeper, and, a guy
Yeah.
that the Rams really should want to go after.
For sure. Yeah. We definitely both like him a lot. And I know that a lot of people who watched our interview with him in the Ram space ended up watching his tape and feeling the same as we do. So definitely a sleeper, but I don't think that, I think he's going to surprise people pleasantly with his talent.
Yeah, this next one Alexis came up with. We just recently did a combined mock draft. He was in that. I really like this pick that you made because Miles Harden here out of South Dakota, we like the sleepers, we like the small school guys, but like this guy could really work in the NFL. And, from a perspective of the Rams here, why it makes so much sense is when you're talking about, going out and getting Darius Williams and, signing Tre'Davious White and having draft capital already where you spent, on three, corners over the last, 2 years. It gives you kind of the flexibility here. If you feel good about your cornerback room, you can go out and get a little bit of maybe a project, a guy that has, elite testing. I mean, in the 3-cone and short shuttle, this is a really good athlete. Maybe he doesn't have the straight line speed you're looking for, but very fluid. Ball skills are there, shows up on tape. We're talking about 4-year starter Miles Harden, but, bring us in with your thoughts on him, Alexis.
Yeah, I think you made a good point with him kind of about being a project, because I do think he is pretty raw in the sense of like an NFL prospect. But like you mentioned, the Rams are in a position right now with that cornerback room to bring in a guy who has a lot of upside like Miles Harden late in the later rounds, which I think they can do. I think something about him is he also is a pretty good tackler. I mean, I wouldn't put him at like the violent level of like Malik Mustafa. Like that's probably not what people are going to think of when they think of Miles Harden. But if you watch his tape, I think he's an underrated tackler. He's pretty good at mirroring routes. Like you don't see him get confused too often, on the receiver. I think a knock on him, which I've seen in different scouting reports that I've read. I didn't watch too many South Dakota games live last season, so I can't speak on this, but he gave up a lot of big plays in college, especially in the backfield. So that is going to probably be held against him by some of these NFL scouts. But just watching him on film, I don't see anything to me that's a massive red flag, other than the fact that he might not look as good on tape as some of the guys going in earlier rounds. But I mean, if the Rams are in the position, in the 6th round to take a corner, I think he's a great option there.
Yeah, I think, right around like late day 3, I definitely think makes sense. If he is an undrafted rookie free agent, that would be a really good value there. I think the level of competition, I think the average size, the lack of straight line speed, and the fact he had 2 season ending injuries in his career is why he will be there on day 3, could cause him to go undrafted, but I think he's a really good mention there that you made. Now we have another guy we interviewed, immediately jumped off, just the tape, like just talking about Brennan Jackson. I mean, you rarely see somebody whose energy on the field matches their energy in an interview. And that is Brennan Jackson. And I'm not the only one saying that. You're not the only one saying that. Like, this is somebody, I was reading about before I even watched the film. And it's just like, this is one of the highest energy, highest character, biggest workhorse guys that you will find in any draft. And he just loves football. He's married. Essentially, it's like a religion to him, with his workout regimen. Like, he really takes it seriously. And that's something that you love to see. I think when you're, looking at him, he'll be available potentially on day 3 because he's 24 years old, being a rookie, older rookie there. He doesn't have the desired bend at the NFL level, and he doesn't have the desired length. But 3-year starter at Washington State. He did tear his ACL in 2018 and broke his foot in 2019, which is something that, might strike some teams as a little scary. But you see it every play. The motor is just relentless. He's got a quick first step. He's got a pass rush plan and an arsenal. I like it, but Alexis, what are your thoughts on Brennan Jackson?
Well, for starters, I mean, again, high motor, high intensity. I mean, we saw that in our interview with him. He was the best. He was like an Energizer bunny, and he had just a great attitude, very infectious, positive energy. That as a person was really fun to have a conversation with him that way. But you kind of see that translate on the field, just like he is relentless. He has a high motor. Every play is the same, very consistent that way. I think his strengths is in the run game. I think he's a better run defender than he is in the pass rush. I think, like you mentioned, I have in my notes kind of he needs to work on his flexibility. You touched on that as well. Something that I think he can improve on at the next level. But you look at him in the run game, I think he's good at setting the edge. He's pretty good at overpowering blockers due to the use of his hands and his speed. Again, you talk about high motor. He just gets there first. He just does not, he's relentless. He does not slow down. And I do think he is going to be a day 3 pick because of his age, because of his injury history. That could be a little bit of a red flag to some NFL teams. But I think he's a really high upside. I think you take the risk on a guy like Brennan Jackson in the 5th, 6th round. I mean, he could even go in the 4th round. But I really like him as a prospect. I really like his tape. I really like him as a person. And I think he's for sure a sleeper that any NFL team should have their eye on if they've seen his film.
Yeah, and I think the Rams especially would like a guy like that. He fits the we not me culture. He would work in I don't think you draft Brennan Jackson and that's the only move you make to address edge. I think you're drafting him to put him into that rotation, and you probably early on drafted, another edge. Same thing could be said about this guy, interior defensive lineman. I'm a big fan of Gabe Hall out of Baylor. He really stood out to me. Now, the reason I went with Gabe Hall here is because I feel like everyone has heard me say Mekhi Wingo left and right. Oh, yeah, here it goes again, Mekhi Wingo. And I was like, you know what? Let me just do some more research. Let me watch some more tape. Who's really standing out to me? I thought Gabe Hall, I came away very impressed with him. Played at Baylor. First off, the thing that really jumps out to me is I watched his workouts, his one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. And I'm not going to lie, he gave a guy on this list the business, Tanner Bortolini, who we're going to talk about in a little bit. And that to me was impressive because I look at Bortolini as one of the better interior offensive linemen in this draft. And so, just watching him go one-on-one with him, watching him go one-on-one with some of the other guys, I was really impressed. I think Gabe Hall, you look at the size, he's 6'6", 294 pounds, which is, that length is really nice and desired. He's got very good athletic testing. He had a 1.71 10-yard split. So you talk about just the explosion that he has, very quick first step, can ruin a pocket, but then he's got the strength to generate a bull rush to really collapse that pocket. He's flexible, he's bendy, he uses his hands well. This is somebody who's got big hands. And the reason why that matters is because when you're not going to be able to get to the quarterback, your next job in line, as soon as you have that realization, wow, I'm not winning this rep, you stick your hands up there and you bat that ball away. And that is something that Gabe Hall tries to do. And I like that because not everyone does. I think he could be a gem in the NFL, Alexis. He was a 3-year starter at Baylor. I think the biggest reason he could fall here is because his lack of production. He's 23 going into the league as a rookie. And to me, I came away really excited about the potential, but if you're looking for a plug and play guy, this is not the plug and play guy. To me, this is somebody that needs some time. He needs to be more consistent. I think NFL coaching is going to go a long way. So I love Gabe Hall as a late day 3 option to add more to your defensive line room. I love what they have with Kobe Turner and Bobby Brown and Desjuan Johnson. I think they draft an interior defensive lineman probably earlier, and maybe that is Mekhi Wingo. But I think this is, if you double dip on this position, I think Gabe Hall makes a lot of sense on day 3.
I agree with your assessment of him 100%. Something I wrote down is spin move in all caps. He has a very beautiful spin move. And I haven't looked into this, but I wouldn't be shocked if there is a highlight tape somewhere just of that. If somebody just cut up every time Gabe Hall did a spin move and made it into a montage on YouTube. It might exist. But yeah, that's something that stands out to me about him. Athletically, you kind of touched on this, very athletically gifted. I mean, I am not somebody who is like super familiar with what good numbers are in the gym, but I'm going to read you what I've written down from some testing numbers from him that sound pretty good to me. I mean, bench pressing 500 pounds, power cleans 465 pounds, 755 pounds on the trap bar, deadlift, and squats 650. And he also hit 18.2 miles per hour on the GPS. So that sounds pretty impressive to me. Pretty good numbers based on, what I see around often. But yeah, I think just very, again, you mentioned his hands, aggressive hands, I think is a good quality about him. He makes it difficult for offensive linemen to go against him because it's just hard to get leverage against someone with that violent of hands and that much power. So yeah, I think this is a great sleeper pick on day 3. And again, the Rams are in a position to take a guy like this because of who they have in the defensive lineman room.
Yes, exactly. And now next up is a guy that we've talked about like ad nauseum at this point. We're just a big fan of his, and it is none other than Tanner Bortolini from Wisconsin. The Rams have drafted from Wisconsin quite a bit. Tanner Bortolini can play pretty much any position on the offensive line. I would say at the worst, he's not a left tackle at the next level, and that's okay. But he could play right tackle, he could play right guard, center, left guard. I feel good about that. Played all 4 of those positions in college, started at all 4. Most notably, he is really a center. And really, I wouldn't want him playing tackle either. I think he's really just an interior offensive line, which is, of course, what we have here. Bortolini, 6'4", 300 pounds, good frame, very explosive athlete. He had a 1.68 10-yard split. So he's even more explosive than Gabe Hall, who's carrying a little bit more on him, Tanner Bortolini. So that says something. But this is a guy that stands out to me, very high IQ. Kind of reminds me a little bit of, Tyler Biadasz, who came into the league as really like high IQ, really intelligent center that has no issue, picking up on the different things that the defense is showing pre-snap, being able to adjust on the fly with stunts and communicate that. We talked about last year with Coleman Shelton. I thought he was solid, but he really struggled with stunts. And I think that's something that Steve Avila is going to be really good at. But the good news is if you go out and you get a guy like Tanner Bortolini, he's also really good at that. And this would be your backup center with the positional flexibility to be all over the offensive line. 3-year starter at Wisconsin. And Alexis, before I send it over to you, I think a big reason why he could fall, because I could see him going day 2, but a big reason why I think he could fall to day 3 is because he doesn't have the desired arm length. That's really what it comes down to. Doesn't really have as much power as the athleticism shows. And so I think that would turn some teams away. But what say you about our guy, Tanner Bortolini?
Well, obviously, the first thing that comes to mind is just how versatile he is, like you touched on. I mean, he can play basically any of the 4 positions on the offensive line, but I think he is most naturally interior offensive line. So I think and that's what NFL teams, I think, are going to be interested in him for. Primarily the center position, I think, is what he's going to be looked at. I think, you touch on his agility. He is very agile. He's hard to knock over. Good hand placement. When you watch him, he can kind of go toe to toe with anybody. Just hard to knock over. I think that he's probably teams might like him a little bit more in pass protection, but he does pretty well in the run game too. I don't know that there's really that much of a difference between what he's able to do in pass protection and what he's able to do in the run game. So he can kind of do it all. I did see someone's comp to him being Cam Jurgens, who played at Nebraska and is now with the Eagles. I think that's a pretty good NFL comp for him. But yeah, I mean, people who watch our content know that we've talked about him a lot, and for good reason. And he definitely fits the prototype, I think, of a guy the Rams would love to draft. So would not be shocked at all if the Rams go ahead and grab him on day 3.
I wouldn't be shocked either. Next up is a guy that we really haven't talked about a lot. I've mentioned him, I think, bits and pieces on our show. Garrett Greenfield from South Dakota State. South Dakota State was just so dominant. They absolutely took over the FCS. And everyone's talking about Mason McCormick, and Isaiah Davis has, buzz, but we're not getting any talk about Garrett Greenfield, who I think is an absolute stud. I mean, Alexis, I'll be honest with you, he's one of the few that I think will go day 3 that I think could start day 1 at left tackle. He's built for the position. I mean, first off, you look, the size, the 6'6", the 311 pounds, very explosive, had a 1.76 10-yard split. That rivals all the top tackles in this draft, except for really Joe Alt, who's just, more explosive at 1.73. That tells you a lot. He's quick. To me, when I see his ability to get to his landmark and cut off an edge rush, it's impressive. That first step is going to make him such a pest. If he's starting, edge defenders are going to hate him. He's a workhorse guy, 31 starts at left tackle, 24 at right tackle. So he gives you that tackle flexibility, moves effortlessly as a pass protector. My issue with him and why I think he'll fall, despite the fact he's a 4-year starter at a dominant program at FCS, is because I don't think everybody gives the FCS the credit they deserve. So I think, the level of competition is still going to be there, which is why I think he goes day 3. He's also going to be 25 as a rookie this year. So a lot, very old at that point, one of the older players in this draft. But when you look at him, really, I think the biggest issue is his run blocking. It's not that he's bad. He's just not great. And I think teams are going to want to see more dominance, especially when you're going up against, smaller competition, if you will. When I don't really think the drop off is that big when it comes to the FCS, but a lot of people do. So I think Garrett Greenfield makes a lot of sense for the Rams, because, you could get him day 3 if you don't, if maybe you don't care about getting a tackle, like we've all kind of said, right? Rams fans have kind of grown into the idea of going out and getting a tackle, but maybe they're higher on their tackles. Maybe they have a plan to bring back Alec Jackson long term. And if that's the case, I think Garrett Greenfield would be great, because you not only could have him as your backup next year, who could replace Joe Noteboom as a swing tackle, but in addition, he could replace Rob Havenstein as a right tackle. So I like the opportunity here, and I think he just makes too much sense. A lot of people don't know who he is because I don't even think you can get him on PFF. I've looked. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think looking at Garrett, I mean, talk about his size, 6'6", 311, great size for a tackle. He has experience playing both left and right tackle, which I know you touched on. So I think that's obviously a point of intrigue for a lot of teams, is the versatility there. He's really good at finishing plays, very good leverage, great balance when being challenged. He doesn't often get fooled at the line of scrimmage. So he's very high football IQ. He seems to know what's up, does not get beat very often. But yeah, you mentioned, I think the biggest knocks on him are going to be his age. I think that's going to be the biggest reason he goes day 3. And then, struggle maybe a little bit in the run game. But I like him. I think he has a lot of upside. Like I said, if you're in that position to take a tackle in rounds 5 through 7, I think Garrett's a great option.
Yeah. And we move on to your pick at tight end, who is a nice size and speed combination. Played at Illinois. We're talking about Tip Ryman. Tell us about Tip Ryman.
So really fun guy to watch on film, and also just in general, I've never personally spoken to him, but I just hear that he has a really infectious personality, really fun guy to talk to. So that was kind of the word around the combine when interviewing him. But I think looking at Tip, something that's really kind of interesting about him, and one of the qualities I like in a tight end, is that he's a great run blocker. Underrated, I think, in the run game by some of the other tight ends in this class, but he's a good run blocker, has great hands. He's hard to knock over, can go toe to toe with pretty much anyone that lines with him in the run game. So if you're looking for a run blocking tight end, Tip is a really intriguing option on day 3. He also has really reliable hands. So while he's a good run blocker, he is also very reliable in the catching game. He did not drop a single catch last season. I mean, he caught everything. Every pass that came his way, he caught it. So you're kind of getting versatility there between the run blocking skills and being used in the receiving game. Also, I thought he was a pretty good route runner. I mean, I know that like as tight ends, their route running can sometimes be a little bit limited, but I thought that he did it. He's a good route runner. I mean, I don't think that there's much criticism there for him. He's able to take contact too and hold on to the ball. Obviously, he didn't drop any passes. So I think, yeah, he's pretty underrated. I didn't see much of him live in action last season. So this is a prospect that I watched mostly after the season was over, and I just really liked him. And if the Rams, want to dip at tight end on day 3, I think he'd be a great prospect.
Yeah. I think he's got quite the name. And, watching him, I think it's evident on tape. I mean, 6'4", 271 pounds, is able to run a 4.64. I think that shows up on film. The thing that really stands out to me is, you mentioned, his character being raved about. I also saw that work ethic was raved about. Efficient blocker, but he's reliable on money downs. And what I mean by that is on the third down or the tough third down play, the tough fourth down play, have to move the chains. There's nothing you could do. You have to come through. He did that. Tough catches over the middle, through contact. You mentioned he didn't drop anything. I mean, there you go. And so you have a guy like that who's already doing that at the college level. That stuff translates to the NFL because that's what we call a clutch gene. And you either have it or you don't. That doesn't just get better over time. That's not even, necessarily a mechanical thing. If you don't make those catches, a lot of that has to do with a mental thing, and you just don't have it. And he has that. So that's a good thing. Moving on here, we have a wide receiver who I'm thrilled about. It is Luke McCaffrey, who's got, I already saw in the comments section, Bloodline. Luke McCaffrey is our pick from Rice. Look, with McCaffrey, you do have the bloodline. Okay. It was brought up. I'm going to bring it up as well. His father played in the league, both brothers, Christian and Max McCaffrey. Can't forget about Max. Also played in the NFL. Christian's still playing in the NFL. He's got NFL eyes and athleticism. He's 6'1", 203, ran a 4.46. I think this is a really physical player. He's going to go up and take the ball out of the air. He was second in the FBS this past season in contested catches. Doesn't drop anything really. So he's got good hands, and he's also got strong hands. That's what that tells you. He's somebody that's really highly intelligent because he actually used to play quarterback. He ended up transferring, but he did play quarterback at a time for Nebraska. A little bit. Wasn't like their starter or anything. They started 2 games, then ended up starting 3 at Rice before being transferred to wide receiver. But he's a 2-year starter at wide receiver. He's somebody that I think is going to fall because he doesn't have necessarily everything you're looking for in a wide receiver, especially in this class. He's got more of a slender frame, doesn't have a ton of, special teams experience. And there are some guys that maybe are not as good of a receiver as him, but they have the special teams, return ability, things like that, where that might actually, pump their value past him. And I think his play strength could be better. I think when you look, he's a willing blocker, but let's understand something. We see all the time people say willing blocker like it's just, something that just comes right out and it's natural. But willing doesn't tell you anything. It just means that he's not lazy. He's going to go and actually try to do his job. Is he good at his job? And that's the thing with Luke. I think you would want him to be a much better blocker than he currently is. At the same time, transferring over from quarterback to wide receiver, I think he gets a chance going into the NFL, better coaching, nothing against Rice, which just better coaching. I think he will grow into that. So I like this pick. If the Rams can get him day 3 with one of their 5th round picks and get another 5th rounder with Puka Nacua, I don't think that would work out poorly at all.
I agree with you. I really like Luke as a prospect. And, you talk about the bloodline, obviously, that's notable about him. But something that I really like about him, and I think that, most people who scout him and watch his film notice, is that he's really good at like contested catches in the 50-50 ball. I mean, that I think is where he stands out. He will win that matchup most of the time, 9 times out of 10, I think. So great athleticism, good footwork, good burst. I think that one of the knocks on him, you kind of touched on this, is just his frame might be like concerning. And I think his vertical speed would hold him back on deep routes in the NFL. So I could see where teams are like, what is he bringing to the table? Question marks around that. But I think regardless of that, he's still a great prospect, if anything, for the 50-50 ball, if anything, for the athleticism, the burst. He's a good catch radius, I feel. So I think he's a great prospect. I think he has, I think he's going to go in the 5th round is kind of where I see him falling. So like you mentioned, I mean, the Rams have pretty good luck taking receivers in the 5th round. So if they have the opportunity to draft McCaffrey, I would not be shocked at all if they picked him up.
No, I wouldn't be shocked either. You got back-to-back picks. If he's there, he could be the option, even if they go wide receiver earlier, Alexis, because you had mentioned he doesn't have that deep speed to really threaten over the top. And so he wouldn't be your X receiver. He would be like probably replacing like a Ben Skoranek after his contract, or Tutu Atwell, or one of those guys. And so, yeah, I definitely could see them doing that. Moving on to the running back here, we got Kimani Vidal, who I am very excited about. I really enjoyed watching his film. This is a guy with a strong lower half, really allows him to like run over defenders, which you'll notice he does on tape. He's a finisher at the end of runs, which is something that the Rams look for. I feel like the Rams really prioritize the strong lower half. They want you to have strong legs. It's why, some people are like, why they draft Kyren Williams? Well, he's got a strong lower half. It's why he's able to be such a good pass protector. Speaking of which, Kimani is a very willing and able pass protector. He might be around 5'7", but he's in the 200s. He has weight on him. He's not going to just move around. And I think we get caught up in like, oh, well, he's too short for the running back position. How many short running backs have there been that have succeeded in this league? And furthermore, when do the Rams show that they care about size? They really don't. Most positions, they really don't. And so I think Vidal really helps you there. I think he can run with great pad level. It's going to make it really hard for anybody to bring him down. He's going to get lower than you, and that's really what it comes down to. He's a very quality receiver, which I was impressed by, that ability. And I think he's going to be used more in that element at the next level. I think the potential is there. The ceiling is there to get even better. So I definitely would say he's untapped in the receiving game, but he offers enough to feel good about. He runs with great contact balance. Like I said, he's hard to bring down. You hit him in the legs, he's staying up. You got to make sure you put a good hit on him. Another thing that I like is that he is trying to deliver the first blow. He's not waiting to absorb contact. He's hitting you first. And I love that when running backs have that desire to do that. He tested faster than he plays. So he ran like a 4.46, I believe. I would say he's probably like a 4.5 guy. Would probably be a little bit faster than Kyren. So I wouldn't say you're necessarily getting the home run option. But this is, in my opinion, this is diversifying your running back room because he offers things that I would say Ronnie Rivers doesn't have, Zach Evans doesn't have. Kyren has pretty much everything there. But he's not as much of a power back as I would say Vidal is. 3-year starter, set Troy's school record for all-time leading rusher with over 4,000 yards. So, yeah, where does he go? I have no idea, Alexis. I couldn't figure it out. I think he's a day 2 talent, personally, but I could see him going anywhere on day 3. I can't see him being undrafted, but I think the Rams could be interested in the 5th round.
Yeah, I have him as a day 3 guy just because the running back class this year, in my opinion, it is going to go later than normal. Just with kind of the way the prospects are shaking out. But yeah, my notes on him, I mean, very good downhill runner, very tough, pass protection, very important. I know to both you and I in a running back, and he is very good at it. So that is a really good quality of his. I also have down that he's great in the receiving game. He's fun to watch. Make catches. And I think that in the NFL, any team that drafts him, like you said, is going to explore that more and probably use him more in the receiving game than he was used in college. But yeah, I mean, just a very tough kind of violent runner, like you said, hard to bring down, fun to watch because it's just, he will not go down. That type of running back that I think a lot of teams covet and like. I didn't really see, honestly, a lot of knocks on him other than, I saw some scouting reports that were like, well, he's going to at least be pretty good, in the special teams, but I think he can do more. I think he's too talented to be, looked at in that regard. I just think that he's going to be that running back that can come in, maybe not be a starting running back, but he certainly has a high motor and enough energy to really complement somebody. And like I said, just, you want that violent running back. I think he's a really good option.
No, I agree. And, I think the thing is, if you want to play running back for the Rams, you have to be able to pass protect because this team is really focused on one goal. It's keeping Matthew Stafford healthy. And when Kyren Williams took over for Cam Akers, there was more than meets the eye. It wasn't necessarily just because Kyren was, reading blocks better and he was quicker and all of that. The main reason was pass protection. Like they could have worked it out if Cam could pass protect at the level of Kyren, there's a chance they would have just rolled with Cam and had Kyren as the scat guy, right? But in reality, the pass protection there, when you're running 11 personnel as much as you are, like you need to make sure, hey, if you're on the field on third down, you better protect Matthew Stafford. You better protect number 9. That's our best chance of doing what we want to do and accomplish winning another Super Bowl. And if you can't protect him, like I'm not putting you out on the field. And that's the big reason why Zach Evans didn't see the field last year. And honestly, Ronnie Rivers has gotten better in that avenue, but he's going to need to get a lot better in that avenue to fight off whoever they draft because, come on, let's be honest here. The Rams are drafting a running back. We all know it. They do it every year. This will be no different. I don't know if it'll be Vidal, but I do know whoever he goes to is going to be very happy, even if it isn't the Rams. With that said, last but not least, we have the quarterback position, which if you're like me, you probably don't want the Rams to touch a quarterback, but Alexis has a sleeper that she thinks that you guys should know about, and that is Carter Bradley from South Alabama. Tell him, Alexis, what your thoughts are on Carter Bradley.
So Carter Bradley is someone who I think is going to go under the radar, obviously having played at South Alabama, not getting as much screen time or airtime as a lot of these other schools. So a lot of people before the draft were unfamiliar with him, although he was, at the combine and was able to perform with a lot of these guys and kind of show what he could do there. But Carter, I think, is very underrated as a passer. He has very good ball placement when you watch his film, where you're kind of like, okay, that was interesting. A lot of throws like that are very well thrown. He has natural athleticism, which when you kind of first look at his draft profile, you might not think that, but if you watch him on film, he's like very agile and almost kind of sneaky and can make those plays with his legs that kind of take you back and is very surprising. It's funny because when I watch him, I was like, he kind of reminds me of Aiden O'Connell in a way, but I was reading a scouting report on him that compared him to Jack Cohn, and that could be a knock because we all know kind of what happened with Jack Cohn. But I prefer to think of him as Aiden O'Connell. I really do. I think that he's someone that you can draft, and with his accuracy, with his good ball placement, give him time to develop, he could be a really good sleeper pick. Some knocks on him is because of that good ball placement. I think he can get over ambitious with a lot of his throws, which can get him into trouble. So it affects his consistency because he makes those throws, where he gets on a hot streak and he's doing well, but then he'll just make some plays that are just not good. So I think that's going to be a knock on him because teams are going to be turned off a little bit by that and his consistency. But that's why I think he's a guy that's probably going to go 6th round, probably going to go 7th round. And you're basically drafting him saying, we're going to take a chance on him because the skill set's there. Can we make them work at the NFL level? So we'll see. But if I was picking a sleeper quarterback, which I was, I really like Carter.
Yeah, he's interesting. I see he's like a bigger version, in my opinion, of Jake Haener. I think Haener was a better prospect, but I think he kind of reminds me of Jake Haener at Fresno State. 6'3", 213, like you mentioned, that's good NFL size. You know, you're not going to complain at that. To be fair, the Rams don't care about size, as they've shown us. They had a 5'11" quarterback at one point. So, yeah, I mean, I think the thing I like about Bradley when I was watching him, he's got good arm strength. Would I say it's plus arm strength? Not quite. It's not average, though, which a lot of quarterbacks, they struggle because they come in the league with average arm strength and they're trying to do what worked in the college level in the NFL, which doesn't fly. But he also can go through full field progressions, which is something that, again, not a lot of quarterbacks can do at the college level. So that translates. You know, he's poised and confident in the pocket, so that's good. He's confident in his ability. The problem is, and you mentioned, he lacks consistency, and really, like, he will look like maybe even a day 2 pick at times. And then other times he looks like he wouldn't even be signed in undrafted rookie free agency. Like, I think just the deviation there will scare a lot of teams away. I think he'll be a priority free agent, could go in the 7th. But yeah, I mean, if the Rams are looking for like a project guy, like you mentioned, want to bet on the traits and stuff, I mean, I could maybe see it.
We'll see. I don't believe that the Rams are going to draft a quarterback, if I had to guess.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
But looking at, like, you know, a sleeper pick, I think that I just wanted to bring him up because I wouldn't be like entirely shocked. But yeah, I know a lot of people aren't even familiar with him, like I said, out of South Alabama. So people are just now kind of becoming familiar with him, but we'll see.
We will see. So, folks, hope you guys enjoyed. A lot of fun. We love talking prospects. We love talking sleeper prospects. We love the NFL draft. Of course, we'll be doing a NFL draft live stream during the NFL draft, Downtown Rams. So you can check that out if you liked our live stream today. You can follow me at JK Bogan. You can follow Alexis at Alexis Kraft and at the Alexis Kraft on Twitter. But yeah, do you have any final thoughts, Alexis?
Just that we're about to see very soon if we were right about any of these sleeper picks, because we are 9 days away. My math is correct.
Yeah, it's flying by. A lot of stuff, but guys, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. We'll see y'all soon. Take care. Until next time.